Let me ask you something that's going to sound offensive at first. What if the retirement plan your employer handed you on your first day was never actually designed to make you wealthy? Not because your employer is evil, not because HR is running some conspiracy, but because the entire structure of the 401k, the thing millions of Americans are betting their entire financial future on, was built to solve a corporate accounting problem, not your retirement problem. Yours just happened to get attached to it. Sit with that for a second, because here's what's actually happening right now. The average American retires with $87,000 saved. Using the standard withdrawal formula that financial planners have used for decades, that generates roughly $290 a month. That's not a retirement. That's a part-time job you can't quit. And the people holding that number in their hands aren't lazy, they aren't irresponsible. Most of them did exactly what they were told. They enrolled in the plan, they checked the box, they trusted the brochure. And the brochure lied. Not with false numbers, with incomplete ones. My name is Marcus, and I've spent the last decade inside the mechanics of retirement vehicles, not the marketing version, the actual structural version, studying exactly how the gap between what people are promised and what they actually receive gets created. And what I've found is that the retirement system in America runs on one deeply profitable assumption, that you will never understand it well enough to use it against itself. Today, that assumption ends. By the time this video is over, you're going to understand exactly why your 401k is simultaneously the best and most dangerous retirement tool available, what the financial industry doesn't model in their projections, the specific sequence that separates people who retire with dignity from people who retire into panic, and one capital preservation strategy that most people don't discover until it's too late to fully use it. Let's start with a myth so embedded in middle-class financial culture that questioning it feels almost un-American. The myth is this: contribute to your 401k, get the employer match, let it grow, retire comfortably. That's the full instruction set most people receive, and the reason it's dangerous isn't because it's wrong, it's because it's aggressively incomplete. It's like handing someone a map that shows the destination, but removes every bridge that's been washed out. Here's what the brochure never models: fees. Not the dramatic fees, the invisible ones, the kind that don't appear in bold print anywhere on your enrollment form. The average 401k charges somewhere between 1% and 1.5% in total annual fees when you add together the plan administrative costs and the expense ratios buried inside the mutual funds the plan offers. That sounds like nothing. 1% barely registers. Except here's what 1% actually costs you over a 35-year career. Take two people. Both invest $400 a month. Both earn an identical 7% annual market return. One is in a low-fee index fund charging 0.05%. The other is in the typical actively managed fund inside a standard 401k charging 1.2%. After 35 years, the low-fee investor has approximately $810,000. The high-fee investor has approximately $640,000. The fee difference alone consumed $170,000. That's not a rounding error. That's a decade of contributions evaporated by a number small enough that most people never even looked for it. The financial services industry collects that money whether your fund goes up or down, rain or shine, bear market or bull market. The meter runs. And the brochure never once shows you a 35-year fee simulation, because if it did, you'd spend the next hour interrogating every fund option available in your plan instead of just picking the target date fund with your retirement year on it and calling it done. Which brings me to the target date fund problem, and this is important. Target date funds are sold as the set-it-and-forget-it solution to retirement investing. You pick 2050 or 2045 or whatever year you plan to retire, and the fund automatically shifts from aggressive stocks to conservative bonds as you get closer. Sounds smart, sounds safe, and for people who would otherwise do nothing, it's genuinely better than nothing. But here's what the fund company doesn't tell you.
The conservative, bond-heavy portfolio you'll automatically be shifted into as you approach retirement is one of the worst places to hold retirement money during a high inflation environment. Bonds get destroyed by inflation, and the last decade has reminded everyone over 55 exactly what that feels like when it happens with your retirement money. The model assumes you retire on a specific date and immediately begin withdrawing. Most people don't. They retire and then live for another 25 to 30 years. A 65-year-old today has a statistically meaningful chance of living past 90. That's a 25-year investment horizon that a bond-heavy portfolio is almost mathematically guaranteed to underperform across. The fund solved for the wrong variable. It solved for the date, not the duration. Now, before I show you exactly what to do instead, and I will in specific tactical detail, I need to address the psychological trap that keeps most people from ever getting this far in the conversation. It's called contribution comfort, and it is the silent killer of retirement outcomes. Contribution comfort is what happens when you set your 401k contribution to 6% on day one, get the full employer match, and then mentally file retirement under handled. The number never moves, your salary increases, your lifestyle inflates, but the contribution percentage stays locked at 6% for the next 15 years because touching it requires logging into a system you haven't opened since orientation.
Meanwhile, the math is quietly turning against you. If you're 35 years old and your retirement projection shows you'll have $1.2 million at 65, that number feels safe. It feels like enough. But that projection is built on today's dollars. By the time you're 65, assuming a modest 3% average inflation rate, $1.2 million will have the purchasing power of roughly $500,000 today. Half. The brochure projects nominal dollars. Inflation eats real ones. And nobody shows you the inflation-adjusted version because that number is psychologically uncomfortable, and psychologically uncomfortable people ask questions that slow down enrollment. This is a good moment to subscribe and hit the notification bell if you're getting real value from this. The next section is where most financial channels stop. We're going in deeper. Here is the part nobody teaches you. The sequence, not what to invest in, the sequence in which you use your accounts. Because the order you fill your retirement buckets directly determines your tax exposure in retirement, and most people get this sequence completely backwards. The standard advice goes, contribute to your 401k up to the employer match, then max out a Roth IRA, then go back and add more to your 401k if you have leftover money. That's the sequence. Most people know it intellectually. Almost nobody follows it with precision because the default behavior, just auto-contributing to the 401k and stopping, is too easy. Here's why the sequence matters in a way the brochure will never explain. Your traditional 401k is a tax-deferred account. You don't pay taxes when the money goes in, you pay taxes when it comes out. That sounds like a win, and it is a win if your tax rate in retirement is lower than your tax rate today. For most people in their peak earning years, that assumption is reasonable. But for someone who has spent 35 years aggressively building a 401k balance, required minimum distributions starting at age 73 can push them into a higher tax bracket in retirement than they were ever in during their working years. The IRS forces you to withdraw a calculated percentage annually whether you need the money or not, and every dollar you pull out is ordinary income, taxed like a paycheck. The Roth IRA solves this problem entirely. Contributions go in after tax. Everything that grows inside it, every dollar of compound growth across decades, comes out in retirement completely tax-free. No required minimum distributions, no IRS-mandated withdrawals. The money sits there, growing, until you need it, or until you want to pass it to your children as a tax-advantaged inheritance. The people who retire with the most flexibility aren't the ones with the biggest single account. They're the ones who built what's called a tax-diversified retirement portfolio. Money in traditional accounts they can draw from in lower income years, money in Roth accounts they can draw from in higher income years without triggering a tax event. 3 buckets, different tax treatments, different access rules, maximum flexibility. Most people retire with 1 bucket,
and one bucket means one set of tax consequences you can't maneuver around. Now, here's the capital preservation strategy I promised you earlier, the one most people don't find until they're already 60. It's called Roth conversion laddering, and it's one of the most powerful, least marketed tools in the entire retirement system. Here's how it works. When you retire, or better, in the years just before you retire, when your income temporarily drops, you deliberately convert a portion of your traditional 401k or IRA into a Roth IRA. You pay taxes on the converted amount at your current, potentially lower tax rate. Then that money sits in the Roth for 5 years. After those 5 years, it's completely accessible, completely tax-free. If you start this process at 55, converting strategically each year during lower income years, by 62, you have a growing pool of Roth money available without penalties, without required minimum distributions, and without the IRS dictating when you touch it. The wealthy don't wait until 73 to think about this. They build the ladder in the decade before retirement when their income is manageable and the conversion taxes are lowest. The middle class finds out about it at 68, when the window has largely closed and the required distributions have already started pushing their taxable income into territory they weren't prepared for. The retirement system isn't broken. It works exactly as designed. It efficiently accumulates fees, generates taxable events in your highest need years, and rewards the people who understood the architecture over the people who trusted the brochure. You now understand the architecture. The question isn't whether you have a 401k. Almost everyone has one. The question is whether you're using it as the tool it is or as the product it was sold to you as. Because those are two entirely different relationships with the same account number. Start with the fees. Pull up your plan today. Find the expense ratios on every fund you're holding. If any of them are over 0.5%, find out whether your plan offers a lower cost alternative. Most plans have at least one index fund option. Find it. Move toward it. Then look at the sequence. Are you capturing the full employer match? Are you funding a Roth IRA? If your income allows it, are you building the second bucket alongside the first? Then, if you're within 15 years of retirement, start modeling a conversion ladder. A fee-only fiduciary financial planner, not a commission-based one, can run the tax projections and show you exactly what the conversion math looks like for your specific situation. The brochure you were handed day one was never going to show you any of this. It wasn't designed to. It was designed to get you enrolled. Getting you wealthy was never in the job description. That job now belongs to you, and you just picked it up.